Hey everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com, and welcome to the Daily Futures Market Outlook, where we take a look at our big six markets and formulate an attack method for tomorrow's price action. And that's going to be for the 26th of April. We're going to be looking at the bond, the euro, the gold, bonds, crude oil, and the S&P 500, to name a few. And we're going to be, again, making a plan as best we can with what the market is giving us in terms of information right now. Now, before we jump into all the fun stuff here, make sure to swing on over to the website, scroll down, and click on the Join the Daily Outlook newsletter. That's going to sign you up for our email list that you'll know every single time one of these videos comes out. Along with that, in the newsletter, we talk about all kinds of different stuff. Different stocks, different long-term plays, different statistics that are going on, all kinds of fun stuff to keep your eyes on, and a great newsletter to be a part of. Along with that, every day we post a market psychology video. We basically rip apart a market and find out as much out about that market as we can so we can better ourselves for the next day of trading. And when you learn the psychology of the markets, that's really where you start picking up on how to trade them correctly. And of course, every single morning we post our live trader morning prep levels, which will have all of the big six for our levels traders. Now, if you haven't done so already, make sure to click on the Live Trade Room subscription and trial info, and you can sign up for a one-day trial to see what we're all about. If you really like it, you can sign up for a 1 week or 1 month option, and if you really enjoy it, joining as a VIP member will have the Live Trade Room included, so you'll never have to worry about paying anything ever again. Now, looking at the bund, overall, we are continuing this bearish trend, right? Pretty straightforward that the bears kind of own the market right now, and, well, they haven't really stopped. We were talking about on the bigger picture, this may just be a big pullback, but until the buyers show us, their hand, tip their hand at least a little bit, show us the top of the cards, until we see them actually tip their hand, we have no reason to believe that the buyers are coming in yet. And so far, they haven't really done that. We're just continuing to the downside. So with that massive bearishness that we're getting in the bund, we have to stay on the sell side. Now, given that we are so far down and every single day it seems like we're just grinding lower and lower, I would prefer to get a better price. Now, in this case, I do want to sell. I would love to be a seller, but I want to sell closer to 161.10 just to get a better price on the move so we can drive the market back down towards the lows from a slightly more advantageous location. Over on the euro for the most part has been fairly bullish for most of the day, but we really kicked it off at around 10 o'clock. Seems like the market really lifted at around 10, forming a little bit of a flag pullback afterward, and now we're coming back into the earlier area of resistance, now turned support. So with that kind of shift where we have that earlier major area of resistance that was the channel highs, we're pulling back in to use it as a possible level of support to bounce it back up again. There are a lot of levels of interest here. Now, obviously, you can also see that big, thick green line coming across there. That is a monthly level of support. We also have a 60-minute chart level of support at 94.82. So everything coming into the same location is what we would call a kill zone. So we're looking for a possible pullback to an area of interest, and that's going to be one right there. If we can get them all stacked up, then we're looking for a buy area bounce back towards an attempt at the highs. Now, depending on how aggressive this pullback is, especially if it dips really far down, we may not have the opportunity to do much more than maybe just retest the highs. But, overall as it stands, we're looking to become a buyer at a slightly better price than where we are right now for a rally back up towards the highs once again. From there, because we are so overextended on the euro, it may just be time to kind of duck out and call it a day. But for this point in time, we're still looking for that pullback. Over on gold, still nice continued bearish momentum to the downside, and today really drove that home, where we're really seeing the sellers just hammer this market down. And when it really came time for the buyers to try to show up and hold it, all they managed to do are get these little bitty bounces and then collapsing right back down. So with that heavy amount of bearishness that just keeps weighing down on the market, we have to give the general consensus to the sellers. That hasn't changed, but we don't want to sell too far down. This market is very extended to the downside. So in terms of us trying to find a good location to be really anything but either sitting on the sidelines or waiting, we're going to need a little bit more information, right? Now, this could just be a wider channel like we see here, and if that is the case, what I would like to see is this wedge that's forming, see that break breakdown, find a buy area of support, and then push the market back up from there. But at this point in time, again, we're still on the sell side. I want to look at better sell prices. We have major monthly support in the way, we have daily resistance in the way above us, and we have 60-minute chart resistance above that. So the area that I would be looking for is kind of where they cluster up together, which is right there. We have the top of the channel, 60-minute resistance, and the earlier swing lows all stacking up in the same place at 67.3 for the area that I'm looking to start selling in to get that finalized leg to the lows. Switching gears over to the bonds. The bonds really picked up speed towards the end of the day here. We started off really slow, grindy. We broke away a little bit from around 2 o'clock and then found a little bit of a pause until we started kicking off into the afternoon session. Once the afternoon session really kind of hit, the thing just tanked. So with that heavy amount of bearishness that came in at the end of the day, that dropped us down into monthly support at 152.03. With that monthly support kind of in the way, we really kind of have to be paying attention to the fact that, well, we had a huge failure off of the highs, which we were anticipating. Now we're looking at this thinking, well, this is the exact same thing, an equidistant break up into a break down, right? And that puts us smack in the exact same place right down here. So we have a major area of support. I didn't draw the line there because it was right on top of that monthly support, right at 152.03. So we have a deviation down lower after that move higher. They're equidistant to the downside, so we have a huge amount of support here, and this would pretty much solidify a range if we do start getting some bouncing here. For the time being, we are on the sell side because we have to be assuming that the bears own this market. We're still underneath the moving average. We're still driving lower. All of the buy attempts have failed today, so we have to give it to the sellers. But if we do see the buyers show up, I wouldn't hurt my feelings at all to become a buyer to attempt that move right back up towards the highs, just like we had off of the highs down to the lows. So at the moment, looking to be a seller right around 152.17 up to 22 or so. But if that begins to fail, looking to reverse sides and push that back up towards the high. Over on crude oil breaking away from the earlier morning range that we had, really kind of stagnated most of the day. We had a tight little range inside here. They tried to break out of it, really didn't accomplish a whole lot. Pop back in, tried breaking down again. That led into a new range where they tried to break out of and didn't get very far. And now we finally picked up speed and got things going. So we have a massive upside objective for buyers at 49.89. Looking for them to continue to the upside here, but we need a little bit of a pullback, which we are getting right now. We're a little bit lofty up here, so all things considered, I would be looking to buy at least weekly support at 49.63, or maybe even a little bit underneath it to finish off that objective right back to the highs and get that 49.89 out of the way. So again, we're looking to be buyers and fairly close to the area right now. And then finally, the S&P, good bullish momentum today. Just right from the open, the market just never stopped going higher until the very end of the day where we started seeing some profit taking. Now, with this kind of day, it's very difficult when you're trying to sell, right? If you're trying to sell into this kind of day, you probably had a really hard time. But if you're trying to buy into this kind of day and just buying, pretty much every dip worked today. And that's a big clue. That shows us that, well, if it wasn't obvious enough, we're in a very bullish market. Now, we are forming a little bit of a kind of a spike higher into a channel, and that spike in channel is giving us a pullback. And that big pullback support area is going to be at 23.83, maybe even a little bit below it down to 82. But this 1 point zone down here is going to be a beautiful area for buyers to attempt to come back in and push the market back up towards the highs. Now, more likely going into tomorrow, we're going to be transitioning into a range. After a big day up or down, the next day usually following ends up being a range regardless. So looking for the overnight session to be maybe a fake break of the lows and then a pop back higher. If we can make it back to the highs, that's great. Otherwise, probably just fluctuate back inside of that overall range. So that's going to do it for the daily outlook. Now, looking at tomorrow's news, we've got a couple things to keep our eyes on. Out of the Canadian dollar, or out of the Canada side of things, Canada's got some 8:30 news. The core retail sales forecasted at negative 0.3%. The previous was 1.7%. We also have the crude oil inventories, which we have the API number coming out here in just a couple minutes. The crude oil inventories number forecasted at negative 1.6661 million. That's 1.661, if I could speak correctly here. And then the previous one on that was negative 1.034. Going into the afternoon session, or really kind of tentatively throughout the day, we have news out of the Bank of Japan monetary policy statement and their outlook reports. So if you're trading any yen pairs, that can definitely have an impact. And of course, all the French election election stuff still kind of, you know, going on. There's rumblings all over the place, which can throw the markets for a little bit of a loop too. So like we always say, make a plan, trade the plan, follow those rules, and you'll be A-okay. Until next time, we'll see y'all then.